Hi there, I want to share some words of Torah with you about this week's Parsha, Parshat Vayikra. I'm going to talk about something very interesting. I'm going to talk about salty sacrifices, or perhaps sacrifices of salt. Doesn't seem all that significant, does it? As you may be aware, this week's Parsha opens up the third book of the Torah, and this book is called, besides for being called Sefer Vayikra, it's called Torah Kohanim. Why? Because it deals in detail with the mitzvot of the Kohanim and the service of the temple. One of the more interesting and kind of puzzling commandments when it comes to the mitzvah, or the idea of karbanot, of sacrifices, of bringing an offering before God, is the idea that one is supposed to bring salt on the mizbeach. Salt. Why salt? So the Sefer HaChinuch, in explaining the root of this mitzvah, suggests a number of ideas, and we're going to go with one of them. He says, take a look at the nature of salt. Salt is a preservative. Salt is something that's used to preserve meat so it doesn't spoil and rot. What's a carbon? A carbon has an element of salt to it as well. It's meant to preserve the person, to ensure the person refocuses and rededicates his life or her life for a higher purpose. Salt is a preservative, a carbon is a preservative. A person is meant to preserve themselves. Beautiful idea. Why is it relevant to me? Why is it relevant to us? Fascinating halacha in Shulchan Aruch, in the Code of Jewish Law, where it says that when one is eating bread, one should have salt on the table. Well, what for? The Ramah, who is one of the principal commentators on the Shulchan Aruch, explains, well, the reason why you're meant to have salt on the table is because the shulchan, the table of your home, is like the altar of the temple. The table in your home is like the mizbeach in the Beit HaMikdash. Just as the altar has salt on it, similarly your table should have salt on it. So we've gone from an obscure statement, halacha, that you should have salt, to an even more obscure reasoning that drives this halacha. So thankfully we have the Mishnah Berurah, the Chavetz Chaim, who wrote a commentary on the Ramah, who can help us out and explain the idea that we're going for here. Explains the Mishnah Berurah. Let's think for a moment about the purpose of a mizbeach. The purpose of an altar is to aid one in attaining kapara, in attaining atonement, cleansing sin. What's the purpose of your table at home? To feed yourself? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, you can go out to eat, right? He explains in Chavetz Chaim that the purpose of your table at home is for kapara as well. It's to help you attain atonement too. How? By serving poor people. By inviting those who do not have. Inviting them in and giving them to eat. So there's a parallel here. Just as the mizbeach, the altar in the temple, helps one attain kapara, so too, the shulchan, the table of your home as well, can help you attain kapara. In a certain sense, now we can understand the parallel. What's a carbon? It's a kinesthetic expression of yourself. You're offering yourself up, not literally, but figuratively. Why? And you're telling God, I'm going to focus and commit myself to doing the right thing. Well, your table as well. Your table, and inviting guests in and feeding them, is an expression of that focus and commitment. It's an actualization of that focus and commitment, and therefore it helps you in attaining kapara. Normally I would stop here because we're at about 3 minutes and 20 seconds. But considering that Purim is 2 weeks away, less than 2 weeks away, precisely 12 days away, I want to add one more thought as it relates to feeding the poor. There are 4 mitzvot that we do on Purim. We, number 1, read the Megillah. Number 2, we have a festive meal. Number 3, we give gifts to our friends, gifts of food. And lastly, this is in no particular order, number 4 is matanat lavyonim, which is gifts of money, monetary gifts to poor people. Says the Rambam a fascinating thing. He says that a person can theoretically be focused in on the seudah, the meal, and have an extremely long, festive, entertaining meal. Wonderful idea, right? Well, why not? Alternatively, you can focus on mishloach manot, which is giving gifts to your friends. Says the Rambam, the best thing to do though is focus and concentrate your efforts on uplifting the poor and giving them matanat lavyonim. He says when you do that, not only are you doing a mitzvah, but in fact you're being godlike. For in Isaiah 57, Yeshaya, it says that God is one who makes those who are downtrodden and rejoices them and makes them happy. This explains the Rambam that when you give monetary gifts to the poor, or in our case of the Ramah, where you invite them in and you feed them, you are accomplishing the ultimate simcha, the ultimate level of happiness, by not only being happy yourself, but by helping those who are less fortunate than you be happy as well. And this, says the Ramah, is the lesson of the salt of the temple. And with that, I want to wish you a Shabbat Shalom and Happy Purim.